and I want to welcome you to 52 Fridays, Chapter 7 live reading. And since Willow just finished, and it's fresh and hot, I'd love to hear a knee-jerk reaction of how the book was upon, the completion of the journey.
Sure, I'd love to. I want to cry, laugh, dance, curl up in a ball. And it's inspiring. I just want to read it to my husband thoroughly, and then I want to read it to my best friends, and then just keep reading it to people, because I have seen too many people with traumas in this part of their life, and it hurt me every single time. I'm like, man, this got to be healed. And so I'm inspired by all the many ways that it's possible to heal and have fun.
Yeah, and have lots of fun doing it. Thank you, Willow. That's excellent.
You're welcome.
So we're on Friday number 7, opening night. And this is still an initial building of the relationship between these two players. And in a sense, so Violet, who's new to polyamory, kink, tantra, is falling in love with Raven, who's now doing the opening night of her one-woman show. And so it's like polyamory, because Raven's true love is theater, and she's introducing Violet to theater. And so very much like the first time you introduce your lover to other lovers, there's kind of that energy in the room. And so we'll go ahead and see their interaction, but the themes of this week are, sex magic, and there's also self-pleasuring. And my hope is that this reading will stimulate questions along those themes. You're welcome to ask whatever questions you want about the book, but my desire is to transmit teachings that are more valuable to your life and your life path. So if there's something that will support you in those tantric queer poly practices, be sure to, no holds barred on the questions. Opening night. Nick hovers around the ticket booth in a vintage blue tux, welcoming guests as they enter. Violet arrives in a tight crimson dress and sniffs the theater's hallway. The usual hint of dust and sweat is masked by burning sage. She hugs Nick and asks him to take an orchid to Raven before the show. She's in the green room. You can bring it to her yourself. Raven pulls Violet into the dressing room and plants a kiss on her parted lips. Violet stands in awe of Raven's striking figure, framed by an embroidered gown. You look stunning, my queen. Smiling, she bows before Raven and presents her with the potted plant. Raven smells the flowers and exclaims, "Lady Slippers, how'd you know?" "It's from Damien. He told me to remind you. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, but an orchid is always a vagina." Raven smirks and says, "Please thank him for all the space he's given me. Sorry I wasn't ready to see him tonight." He understands. How are you? I'm past the stage where I want to throw up, and I need you to sit in the front row. I saved a seat for you, house left. That's where I do the climactic scene, and I want to look out and feel you there. I'm honored. I'll go there now. Raven grabs Violet's arm and tugs her in for a hard kiss on the mouth. If I suck tonight, I'll take it out on your ass. And if you rock, you can punish me even harder. Before leaving, Violet looks back at Raven and says, "I love you." It just sort of slips out. It's less of a revelation than a fact. It feels as if it feels like a fact. It feels as if Violet simply stated, "The sun is hot." Raven smiles and says, "I know." Violet finds her special seat in the front row and watches nearly 200 friends, students, and community members file into their seats. Violet smiles to herself, knowing they have all come to watch her queen. The music stops. Lights flicker. Eventually, the chatter slows. Nick steps on stage with his guitar and says, "Consider me the fluffer. I'm here to warm you up with an original number. For those of you who don't know, I'm Nick, Raven's partner. If she's the sacred slut, I'm her patron saint. I wrote this little piece about decriminalization of prostitution. You laugh now, but you have no idea how hard it is to find words that rhyme with victimless crimes and consenting adults. So please bear with me." Violet giggles through Nick's musical comedy set, then nearly jumps to her feet when her queen floats on stage in her royal gown. She carries herself as if wearing heels, but is clearly barefoot with toenails painted like lilacs. She centers herself in the spotlight and waits for the applause to subside before opening with an invocation. I dedicate this show to the sacred sluts of the world. We are a subversive band of men and women doing holy work in hotel rooms, yoga studios, private homes, and occasionally temples. We are temple priestesses, heaven's harlots, holy whores, and sacred prostitutes. Call us whatever name you choose. We may or may not use labels. We may or may not have sex with our seekers. We may or may not accept money for our work, but we all serve the goddess. As Raven kneels at the altar, Violet feels tingles as she recognizes the basket of fruit alongside Raven's crystal cock. Violet is aroused by the intoxicating sound of Raven's voice. Or is it her graceful movement? She feels her own flower blossom against the cushion of her seat. Oh, as Raven shapeshifts into a variety of different forms using body language, vocal intonation, and wigs. Violet's favorite line happens when Raven wears a wavy blonde wig to play the modern courtesan, Veronica Monet. And the world was telling me that prostitutes are dirty and that our pussies would get loose and saggy if we had too much sex. But it was all a lie. My girlfriend, who taught me the business, had the tightest, sweetest, cleanest, most beautiful pussy I'd ever seen. It was easy for me to get over the idea that women who worked in the industry are nasty hoes or undesirable. It was like, oh my God, she's so hot and you're so wrong. I don't care what you're all saying, you're wrong. My vagina is a muscle, not some orifice that's gonna get stretched out of shape if I use it too much. You can't defile me. I'm a muscle, and the more you use me, the more powerful I become. The show culminated in an indescribable, ecstatic sacred ritual wherein Raven's prayers merged so fully with Violet that she lost all sense of time and space. Afterward, Raven tenderly gathered herself in a rocking chair in the dim down stage light, talking directly to the audience about the dharma of the sacred prostitute. For centuries, she's been the one whose job it is to take the war out of the warriors. After Raven receives an explosive standing ovation, she dashes backstage. Violet, still in awe, slips behind the concession stand to make a cup of hot tea. She eavesdrops on the excited chatter of adoring audience on her way to her queen's green room. Violet finds Raven crumpled against a cushion, sobbing, her silk robe loosely fastened around her lithe body. She sets the tea down and kneels at Raven's feet, lightly holding her leg. Violet observes Raven sobbing, pretending not to notice that one of Raven's boobs is peeking out of her robe. She yearns to touch her nipple, but she intuits that there's a time for inappropriate perverted behavior, and this is not it. Eventually, Nick pops his head in the door to see Raven's body heaving in his girlfriend's arms. Do you need anything from the crew? Just to be held. We can circle for notes in like 10 minutes. He joins them on the couch with an awkward attempt to encourage her. It was 10,000 times better than the dress rehearsal. Violet, who had been unsure about what to say until now, takes his cue. He blew everyone away, especially me. Thank you. I'm not just saying that because you're my queen. I actually learned a lot. Raven slowly sits up, wipes her wet face on her robe, and says, I love you. She turns to her husband and hugs him. Both of you. Want tea? Violet offers. Raven nods and says, I really went for it. I feel well used. Nick asks, anything else? No. Nick smiles and exits, saying, I'll let the crew know. We'll meet in here. I need to ask before I go, Violet says. What is it? Raven says, concerned. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll be telling everyone they must see the show, but I don't feel right about Damien missing it. Can he at least come to closing night? A slow smile spreads across Raven's face. You know, I kind of wish he were here right now. So, we have opening night of the one-person show, and thank you. I am, first, for those of you whose introduction it is to this erotica, with this being chapter 7, I'm curious, excuse me, any responses that you have to what's been read before we get into Q&A? If anyone wants to, to share what it brought up for them or any reflections, I'm open to that first.
Yeah, I really don't have words to describe, when I read. I just got your book on Kindle the other day. A friend of mine told me about it, and it's kind of a funny story. I actually ordered it off online. I got a book in the mail that said 52 Fridays, and it turned out to be cooking. Oh
my gosh, that's so funny. When I was researching my book, I saw that there was a cookbook called 52 Fridays. That is hilarious.
But I got the actual book and I started reading it the other day. I actually put her book down and I really got to get the book back. But I find it really fascinating. It's an interesting glimpse into things. And I just, I don't know.
Thank you.
Great.
Nice to meet you, Keith.
My pleasure. Thanks. I'm great to meet you too.
Other reflections?
Well, I really like the idea that where you say that the vagina is a muscle and you can't really wear it out. Because we're kind of taught like that. Like you have to preserve everything in life and don't wear it out. Like it's got a limited time, number of times it can be used, or everything has an expiration date.
Right.
And when it's really the opposite. It's like the more you use, like the more you love, the more you can love, the more you exercise, the more energy you have. So it's almost like the things we're taught in our society are opposite of what the real truth is. So it kind of ran along the same line of other things I've discovered in life that, I don't know, just got me thinking. I thought that was very powerful and something I'd never heard anybody else say before.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for the reflections on this chapter. And obviously it's taken out of context for some of you, but I am, I do want to point out that in this chapter, what is being performed in the one-woman show is a ceremony authored by Annie Sprinkle, and it's a ritual to invoke the ancient sacred prostitute, and to actually do on stage with the assistance of audience, an activation of prayers. So there's prayers that are set, and then the priestess will self-pleasure and send those prayers, to the divine. And this is really powerful because, especially the contrast of the goddess worshiping culture that did their prayers in their body, they pray love, as opposed to some of the patriarchal religions that take the prayers and they send them up, through the seventh ray, as opposed to down through the first. And both equally powerful, obviously, when you're in a non-dual path, but a lot of the goddess culture and embodied prayer has been lost. And so this is a type of a reclamation. And this chapter just sort of points at the ritual, but it's developed more in other chapters. And also self-pleasuring is seen as a very private thing that you do alone. So the concept of putting a self-pleasuring ceremony on stage for the public to partake in is pretty radical. It's a it's a tremendous like an act, a convergence, an act of synergy that would bring the tribe together to raise the vibration through our collective eros. And this chapter doesn't talk about it, but the audience actually gets very erotic and moves their energy with Raven as well, in order to activate, to supercharge those prayers. So that's where this talks about self-pleasuring, ceremony, sacred prostitution, and sex magic. And so if you have any questions about any of those topics, I'd love to dive in.
I do.
Great.
So I've been in a shamanic apprenticeship for 3 years now, and I just want to say that all your morals, ethics, and values you explained are right in line with what I've been learning. So that was very appreciated. My question is, what are some general prayers that you find are universal and used often? Me and my husband are going on a first date with somebody tomorrow, and I want to start it off right with some ideas. So I would love your input.
Okay, wonderful. I'm delighted to hear that you're, in your two things that you shared, or actually three, but in your shamanic apprenticeship, you feel value aligned, that a lot of the integrity is aligned with I'm assuming in a disclaimer of the book where I really talk about ethics. And that's not surprising, because that's, it's my experience as a shaman that our potency and our magical power actually comes from our congruence and our alignment with our values.